Hello, everyone. Welcome to Small Talk. Sorry, I'm just turning the sound down a little bit here. Joining me today is Tim Cooper. He is running in the upcoming election representing the Green Party, correct?
That's correct. Thank you, Nancy.
Is this your first time getting into the political field?
Actually, 4 years ago, I got dragged into it for the Greens again.
Drag.
So yeah, I would greatly prefer to be home retired, counting my tomatoes. I really would. But
Some say
I
tomatoes.
some
Go
say
ahead,
tomatoes.
sorry.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
and I was simply sitting this one out because I was okay with the NDP's party's uh, enthusiasm for the carbon tax. So I figured, okay, there's hope here. If we go NDP, we can get our emissions down. It will be okay. And then we had an announcement that the carbon tax is going to be scrapped by the NDP if they win this round, and if the Conservatives win federally, which it looks like they will. So I thought, well, I can't sit this one out. So
Okay.
I'm back.
Okay. I've been watching some of the political ads. I just have to say, and I just tune them right out because this party's going to put down that party.
Mhm,
I don't wait long enough to find out if they're going to do anything good.
mhm,
So it's like, why listen to this garbage? Because that's what it is.
mhm.
If you have to be, anyway, that's a whole other issue. That's just my issue. I want to know, what do you think makes a good politician?
That's a great question. Understanding what are the really important issues, I think, is something important. There's a whole bunch of minutiae there which you can get lost in so easily. Um, Bearing in mind, I've never actually been a politician, so I'm having to look at this from the outside.
Mhm.
But also being able to pick your battles. What's an important thing you have to do, and which ones can you let slide for now? Because you
Right,
can't do everything all the time.
right,
Um, also, one of my major beliefs is that I don't know everything. I'm actually just a physicist. So if you ask me about something technical on homelessness or about the drug situation,
mhm,
um, I could learn, but I'd never be as good as one of the existing experts out there. Never
right.
would be. So my philosophy, which actually aligns with the Greens, as it turns out, is to say, listen to the experts, take their advice.
Right.
So
Yeah, right. Now, I believe you're a married
mhm,
man.
effectively, yes.
What does that mean?
Means we're living common law and have been for
Oh, well,
about
that's, yeah.
12 years,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
So, how is your partner? Is she supportive of what you're doing?
She is, yeah. She understands the issues. So,
Oh, okay. And is
yeah.
she
Mhm.
also a Green Party? Uh,
She's actually no, she's not.
she just
She's not a member of any party. She only just got her citizenship sorted out within the last year.
mhm.
So this is the first election in which she'll be voting.
Okay. So what are you going to bring to the party?
To the Green Party or
To
to
the
the
Green
other?
Party, to the table,
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I have my experiences as an educator.
Mhm.
So I have a good idea what's happening in the post-secondary system. So I can bring that with me. I have a fairly good understanding of science and also anything that's got numbers in it. That's my speciality. I was
Okay.
joking the other night. I'll forget your name, but I'll never forget your age. No, not you. So,
Listen, I have
but
no problem.
yeah,
Anybody
yeah,
remembers
but
my age, I have no
yeah,
problem.
I stick with numbers. So
Okay.
anything that's numerical, I'm onto it. That's my
Okay.
thing.
Now, some people believe that
Mhm,
somebody's personal life is
mhm,
totally separate from their political life.
mhm.
What are your thoughts on that?
There's always going to be leakage, but I would believe it's best to keep them as separate as you can.
But can you, like, and
No, not completely.
not completely. Like, I'm just thinking about if
Mhm,
if you're a dishonest person in
mhm,
your personal life,
mhm.
how are you going to be like? Can you be an honest person in a political life agenda?
Uh, Boy, that's a great question.
Mm.
My feeling is no, the two would be you're still the same person. Who we are doesn't change. So,
Yeah, exactly. It
yeah.
doesn't change. So if you're
Hmm.
dishonest, if you're a cheater,
Yeah.
whatever in your personal life,
Hmm.
odds are you're going to bring that into the
Hmm.
arena, into the political.
I would think there's a risk, yeah.
Yeah, and that's pretty
Yeah.
nasty, I think,
Hmm.
eh? Would you agree?
It sounds nasty to me.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
okay, good.
I'm hoping I don't come across that, but that's, yeah.
Well, look, we just want to put things out there and see how you feel about things.
Hmm.
Now, one of the things, another thing that this has got nothing to do with you.
Hmm.
Let's just say it's the conservatives. So they're
Hmm.
going to put this policy in place that costs the taxpayers money,
Hmm.
whatever it is. They're going to do like, we're going to have these cameras everywhere or whatever,
Hmm.
whatever, all over the place, put that in effect.
Hmm.
But they lose it and cost us, we spent all this money.
Hmm.
Now they lose the next election.
Mm.
This other group comes in and says, we're going to scrap that,
Mm.
but they don't give us our money back.
Well, they don't have it because the cameras, you can't sell the cameras back to the vendor and get your money back. That's not how it works.
But why, like my point would be, like what would you take away from any party that's in place now that has cost us money that you think was a bad idea? Or maybe wasn't such a bad idea, you just don't like it. I don't mean you personally, I mean your party.
Yeah. I actually can't think of anything, Nancy. I really can't.
Well, I'm just trying to come up with some.
But I hear what you're saying, though. I was reading an article the other day. One of the biggest damages to the economy of democratic countries is exactly what you've mentioned. Businesses like stability; they like to plan, and when the rules keep changing from election to election, it's really hard for them.
Yeah.
And so my own feeling is you change what you absolutely have to change, but otherwise hold your nose a bit and go along with whatever's been put in motion, as long as it's doing more good than harm.
Right. Now, on a personal level, this is what I want to know from you. Politicians spend a lot of money, government spend a lot of money, of our money, sent to other countries for various reasons, okay? While we're struggling here with like our medical, our health system is falling, lots of major issues. How do you feel about that?
I feel conflicted, to tell you the truth. I mean, I think about what's happening in other countries, especially the border countries closer to the equator, where they're having horrendous floods, horrendous storms, which we are kind of guilty of enhancing with our carbon dioxide emissions. So I do feel guilty of what we're doing to the Deep South. And so I do feel we should be sending something. But at the same time, like you say, we have folks at home who are struggling.
Yeah.
But when I look at the struggles of folks at home, it means a lot to them at this moment when they're struggling right now. But when you compare that to what's happening overseas, where people are literally starving, I'm thinking, we can still afford some.
Well, I do believe in helping. I'm all for helping other countries. I just think home first, because if the healthier we are, the more we can give to others. That's my thought.
Oh, absolutely. And the more we can, when you say healthy, the more we can grow our economy.
Right,
that's really
for sure.
important.
And that affects around the world. Now, you can't help but notice what's going on in the US with their election. Their different agendas. Do you have any views on that you want to share?
Well, I think you'd have to label me a Democratic supporter overall. Definitely. Donald Trump scares the bejeebs out of me. One of my favorite Donald Trump quotes is, climate change is a hoax invented by the Chinese to destroy our economy. I'm thinking, no, doesn't this guy know the first thing about science? And the answer is no, of course he doesn't.
No, he doesn't. And
so I look at that and I'm really worried about it.
And I think he's proud of the fact that he doesn't know anything about science.
Right.
Like that's what the scary thing is. It's almost like I brought that up only because with these ads that I'm seeing with our politicians, it's almost similar to some of the stuff that's happening. Well, what's his name? Rashad? Rastad is linked with Trudeau, and they're going to be, they're going to be doing this, and they brought in all kinds of drugs now, made it okay to be legal. All the like some of the wasn't it just the marijuana, So it's all this false information. That now, would you do anything like that? I want to know what kind of integrity you have.
If I had already served a term in office, this would be a much easier question for me.
You're going to become put yourself up there.
That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm aiming for sure. I have seen so much money wasted over the time. I'm sensitive to it.
Right.
I'm looking at some of the questions from, for example, the Chilliwack Chamber of Commerce debate, which I have to prepare for about halfway through. And many of them say, where would you get the funding from?
Right.
And so looking for waste money is really something that's important to me. That makes me sound like a conservative. I know that, but it's nevertheless true. There is actually, that I'm aware of, a little bit too much money spent in places where it's not really needed.
Right.
So, and I'm not quite sure what to do about that. The Green Party actually isn't right wing or left wing. We're middle of the road. Myself, which fits. The Green Party doesn't have a strong whip. So we're allowed the independent freedom to say what we like, although we do have to go with the guidelines from the Green Party. And for myself, I'm a big fan of let the economy grow as much as possible. you need taxation, we need schools, we need
Yeah,
hospitals,
yeah.
obviously, but we also have to watch out where they're too micromanaged. So let's try to keep the management down to a dull bore, not too loud,
Right,
and try to free up funds that way to do other things.
right.
So I'm not sure that answered your question.
No, yeah, no, it just, yeah,
Mhm.
I have lots of questions. My head's going, boom, boom, boom. Now there's a group a local group there, they call themselves activists. And
Mhm.
they're, as far as I'm concerned, they're a gang of goons putting it out there because they
Mhm.
really don't want to listen to anybody. They're very intimidating. Now, who has control, like government-wise, who
Mhm.
has a say in who can do that type of thing and who can't do that thing? Is that local or provincial? Do you
Could
know?
be either, actually. So I'm not familiar with the group. They're called the
I
activists.
don't know what they're called. I don't know,
Okay.
but you'll see them with
Mhm.
signs.
Mhm.
They like to really like went after. I don't know if you know Terry Westerby. He's
Mhm.
transgender.
Yeah,
They went
on the
after
school board.
Terry.
Yeah, I like Teddy. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they
Mhm.
outside the school board yelling with signs, and they followed Terry, tried to
Mhm.
drive him off the road, all kinds of horrible things like that. The
Mhm.
mayor was approached, but he said he
Mhm.
stays in his lane.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are some of the things I want to
Mhm.
know.
But it sounds to me as if we do have laws in
Yeah,
BC
yeah,
and harassment laws, and that sounds like it's gone too far.
right,
So
yeah.
the BC government should get involved at that point.
Because they're also calling teachers
Mhm.
pedophiles. Those are some of the things they
I
say,
know, yeah, and
you know?
they're trying to ban Sogi, which is just an information source. It's
Yeah,
not anything more sinister than that.
and they won't
So
listen though.
I know,
They
I
just
know.
yell over everybody, you know? So I
Yeah.
just want to know.
Okay.
I keep
Now
waiting.
that I know the group you're talking
Yeah,
about,
yeah,
I'm
okay,
more
good.
comfortable. Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I really don't agree with anything they say. It's on things like human sexuality. If you look at our species compared to similar species that are out there, the other
mm,
primates, obviously, but there just are not, in practice, two genders as viewed from the perspective of the brain.
right.
So you may have a biological gender, but it doesn't necessarily have to fit with your interior mental model of yourself. And
Right.
so it's quite often in zoos, you find a lot of complicated sexual relations. It's not just strictly male on female.
And I don't
It's,
understand why anybody else needs to be concerned about
Mhm.
somebody else's sexual orientation or the way they view
Mhm.
themselves, whatever. Like if it's not disrupting my life,
Mhm.
if it's not disrupting their life by me being heterosexual, why, you know,
Oh, absolutely.
like I don't get that, right?
You and I see eye to eye on that. I mean, just live and let live.
But I just
So,
kind of want to understand
mhm.
like what kind of power, what kind of control the government has over stuff like that.
It's really tricky. I mean, people. I mean, I have a loosey-goosey philosophy that says people should be free to do whatever they want. However, if they're harming others when they're doing it, that should be they should pay for that
Right,
in some way.
absolutely, yeah,
So that's my general rule of thumb of measuring society.
right,
I love freedom, but if you're going to do something to hurt other people with that freedom, no,
right.
that's definitely wrong.
Now let's talk
Um,
about, sorry,
mhm,
talk about the Green Party itself as a
mhm,
party. Um, how can they become like a mainstream party? How can they get in power? How can,
mhm.
you know, because I've heard some people say, well, I won't vote for them because I don't think they'll win, which to me is the
Yes.
most
Mhm,
ridiculous statement I've ever
mhm.
heard.
I would concur that. A vote for the Greens is, even if the Green candidate's not elected, the other parties are going to be watching. They're going to say, oh, look, Greens are growing here.
Right,
What is it that they're saying they'll do that is becoming popular? And those will be adopted by the mainstream parties. The big problem that I see for the Greens in Canada, which is not true for the Greens in Europe, for example, is that our election system doesn't really allow for people to vote for the candidate they want.
right.
So we don't have proportional representation. We have first past the post.
Mhm.
I would go so far as to say first past the post isn't really democratic because we get candidates coming out of Chilliwack that the majority of the people voted against, but they still go anyway.
Right,
So I would love to see the system here changed.
mhm,
And that's one thing that the Green Party would definitely like to see as well, provincially.
right,
I'm not running for the federal Greens, but I know they'd like it too.
yeah,
Mr. Trudeau did say when he was elected the first time, this is the last election ever with first past the post. But then he realized that would give other parties an advantage over his, and he quickly dropped the idea, which was,
oh,
you were talking about integrity.
yes,
That
yeah.
seems to me a perfect example of where it's not.
It would be really
Mhm.
nice if politicians brought integrity on board.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel about, we hear after the fact that sometimes deals are made, political deals are maybe with other countries, but we as citizens hear about it after the fact. It's all done behind closed doors. What does the Green Party feel on that when it comes to something like that?
Great question. I'm thinking quickly through the Green Party policies, and I don't think there's anything that's specifically mentioned in there. I would say that some deals, I mean, certainly in the business sector as well, not just between countries, but between businesses, sometimes you have to keep it secret while you're working on it, because if your competitors heard about it, that could really disrupt it. So I appreciate there's a need to be secretive, especially if it's something to do with defense.
For sure.
But I mean, I don't like it, but I see it as a necessary evil.
Now, a lot of the politics, we know Trudeau comes from money, right? And I often wonder how somebody like him can understand somebody who's like either low income or really just basic income. Do you think he can have any understanding?
I think at an intellectual level he can. He may not be feeling it the same way that you or I would feel it, but I think intellectually he can. But it's not just him. Mr. Polyev, this is public knowledge, his bank account is sitting with $25 million in, which is not bad for a guy who actually was adopted, went through university and never actually got a job, went straight into a position as a member of parliament. And if you add up what his salaries must have been, you come to about 2 million. You say, well, where did the others come from? So there's all sorts of interesting questions. So,
So I just used Trudeau as an example.
I know.
Right. No, I've also heard that the Minister of Housing has rental properties, and we have a really big issue with rent, the cost of rent, cost of buying homes. What do you feel about that?
Well, that is what I would call a conflict of interest. No doubt about that.
I don't know if it's true, but that's what I've heard.
I don't know if it's true either. I was just going along with your statement. But if it was true, then that would look like a bit of a conflict of interest to me. I mean, you can argue the other way. Well, if their business is rental homes, then they understand the rental market. That is good. But they should be a consultant, not actually the minister.
And again, what's the Green Party's view on that about rent, cost of homes, cost of renting an apartment?
It's tricky. The Green Party's one of the policies is to try to increase disability and social allowances so that everybody will get back $2,500. That came out fairly recently from the Green Party HQ. And that will help somewhat. It'll help poorer people be able to handle the rent. But the other issue with that is if people have more money to compete for rental spots or for buying property, that will drive the price of the rental spot up. The bottom line is if you've got, say, for example, 100 people needing houses and you've got only 70 houses, nothing you do with money, making it easy, harder, is going to change the fact that 30 people are not going to get a house. You can change which 30 don't get a house by giving some money to some and not to others. But you're still left at the end of the day with a problem if you have more people than houses. Now, our population is growing rapidly, and that's largely due to immigration, which BC does not control. So we have to just take that and work with that. And the only way forwards is to match our housing supply to the numbers of people looking for it. I don't see any other way out of that one.
Now here,
as I say, I mean, there are ways we can make it a little bit cheaper. One of my favorites actually is if you're building a house, be it a townhouse or even a standalone house, but more likely we're building townhouses now, you can save quite a bit of money for the homeowner by not connecting gas to it, which is something that many cities in BC actually still do. They say it's illegal to actually connect gas. Vancouver said that for years, and they just reversed it for reasons I don't know. But it's quite expensive to put gas into your house. Because think about all those pipes that go through the ground and into your house, they go around to your fires. You also might want a heat pump because it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. I think we've noticed that. Don't need me to be lecturing on climate change, just look out the window.
Listen,
So having air conditioning is also quite important in construction so that you can live in it. But if you have a gas fire furnace and an air conditioner, you put the cost of those together along with all the gas pipes, it's way cheaper to just slap in a heat pump.
For sure.
And environmentally, it's the right thing to do. So I'd like to see that one little step done.
That'd be good. Now in Chilliwack, obviously there's a lot of condos being built, and we have a cap of how many floors. Which means that we need more and more space all the time. My feeling is they should be building high. As much as we don't like it, we only have limited, like any place, limited spots of, land, whatever,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So what are your views on that?
Lesser of two evils, or sometimes lesser of 10 evils. Yeah, compromise is needed in this area. So I would support higher building heights. I may become very unpopular with that, but it's either that or leave the people out on the street.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of interesting because on one of my trips to China, that's where my son lives, I was with my sister, we're staying in a hotel, and they were this particular hotel was very cheap with the toilet paper. So we went down to the lobby to get more toilet paper, and they said, "Oh, it's not us, it's not this one." Well, where is it? Well, we had to go up, so it was a hotel on top of another.
Oh, interesting.
And I thought that was great. And then I've been to Austria where my family live, my bonus family, and like a lot of places, they have businesses on the bottom. And I know we have some of that here in Chilliwack, and apartments on the top, which is I think is a wonderful thing too. Because if you have that, the downtown area is all changed now. I don't know. Somebody was trying to do a good thing. Sorry, I don't think it is, because it brought in a lot of very expensive places that I can't afford to eat at. But I think that would be a good thing, right? To have a business like right beside me. There are businesses. They're just very low, one story. They could have places on top of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right?
So, and I imagine they will eventually. It's just once the land value gets sufficiently high, that it's worth bulldozing it and starting over, it'll happen. So what you just described, first floor business and building on top, that's standard in Britain where I grew up. You can tell from my accent.
Yeah.
But also all across the continent as well.
Right.
It just makes so much sense.
Well, Europe seems to be, in my impression, so much further ahead in so many different things. Like we don't have these big wide roads. So their vehicles are all smaller because the roads are smaller. Why do we have to have these, massive roads, right?
Yeah, I think I can answer it at the risk of being like a squeaky wheel. But in Europe, if you think to have a car and drive it, whether you're in Europe or Britain, you'll find that the gasoline is quite expensive there. Therefore, people don't drive their cars so much.
Right.
They try to avoid it because it's costing them money.
Yeah.
Therefore, they'll take the bus or the train. Therefore, the bus company or the train company gets more revenue, and they put on more buses and more trains, which makes more people choose that. And so there's what's the word I'm looking for? A positive feedback that goes on in the economy. Once you make something that you don't want, like gasoline, expensive, you don't get congestion on the roads. You do from time to time, obviously, but you don't need to keep building. I was just noticing this morning in Toronto, the 401, people keep trying to solve the congestion problem by adding lanes. They've got 22 lanes now.
How confusing is that?
Congestion, yeah, because what tends to happen, and even though people think it can't happen, look at what actually happens. Look at the studies. You add the lanes, so you're just going to add more congestion.
Right. My sister lives in Sardis, one of my sisters, and trying to get out of they're on trailer park, trying to get out to come this direction. It's almost impossible because there's so much traffic. So they have to go up and all around. So I'm thinking something could be done about that, but that's local, right?
Yeah.
That's nothing that
well, the city does decide bus routes. That certainly would be the case.
Right.
And I went to a conference a few years ago in the south of France, and it was a town which isn't that much bigger than Chilliwack. They had tram lines running all over it, electric trams, which is marvelous. Quiet, very swift, because they do share the roads in a couple of spots, but mostly they don't.
That's what we had when I grew up in Montreal, in Ville-Saint-Laurent. They had streetcars.
Yeah.
Right? And it was great, but somebody decided at some point, well, no, they're not such a great idea, I guess.
Well, I'm not sure about Canada, but I do know the history of the US, which is probably the same.
Yeah.
Which is that there was an alliance between the car companies and the oil companies to buy up the railways, and that would include streetcars, and shut them down.
Right.
So they've got a captive market now.
Right.
That's capitalism at its worst.
Okay.
I like capitalism, but unfettered, it can be a real problem.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think I've asked everything I want to ask. I just want to make sure. My main concern was integrity as a politician, honesty, be forthright, be upright. One last question. Now, if you're a person who did something wrong, are you able to admit that and say, I shouldn't have done that, like whether it's political or your personal life, whatever?
I think so.
Okay.
But of course, I would say that anyway. That's the problem with asking.
That's the problem. But I'm asking you as a person who hopefully with integrity.
I'm unaware of anything I've done wrong that I haven't said this is wrong. So,
okay, very interesting. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for
Mhm.
being here. Thank you everybody for watching the show. You've listened to Tim Cooper running for in this upcoming election, representing the Green Party of Chilliwack, Chilliwack Hope, or what is the area?
North Chilliwack.
North Chilliwack. Okay. They keep changing the lines, which drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you everybody for watching the show. I hope you continue to do so. Take care, everybody, and peace out. Now we're gonna find the off button. There we go.